Rita Repulsa is a lot more complicated than you think. Many of you guys remember her as that goofy witch with the over-the-top reactions and always screaming.
Shut up! No! I can't believe they beat us back!
But behind that person is a broken mess. A girl with daddy issues, someone who was always seeking acknowledgement and wanting to prove themselves, and that almost destroyed the universe. And in this video, we'll talk about how Rita Repulsa became Mistress Vile, and how it led to her eventual downfall. So if you remember back in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2 when Lord Zedd first appeared, he would yeet Rita Repulsa into space, and eventually she'd return to Roofy Zedd, and they'd get married. You all know how the story goes from there. Now, in the comics, things play out a little differently. Rita Repulsa is still launched into space, but she's absent from the comics for about 60 plus issues, and when she returns with a vengeance. Instead of wanting to slip a roofie into Zedd's drink, she almost ends up killing him. So how exactly did Rita become Mistress Vile? Well, much like what happened at the start of Season 2, she's launched into space for her failures, and while floating in the dumpster, Rita reminisces about her past, knowing that she wasn't strong enough, and she needed to become more, and her dumpster is soon discovered by Divatox, who was hired by Master Vile to bring her back home to the Gamma Vile. In exchange, Master Vile would tell Divatox the location of Malagor. Now, the relationship between Rita and Master Vile is quite the interesting one, because Master Vile was never originally called Master Vile. His name used to be Eldon, and he used to be married to someone called Fianna, and the two studied the artifacts left behind from the Morphin Masters, and while studying one of the artifacts, it allowed them to peer into the future, and the two would see visions of their yet-to-be-born daughter, and those visions would play out very differently. Fianna saw Rita becoming Mystic Mother, and Eldon saw Rita taking a more darker path. Eldon soon heard voices calling out to him, that voice being Dark Specter. Now, Dark Specter in the comics is kind of like Satan. He needs a vessel, and Eldon set his sights on Rita becoming the next vessel once she was born. Catching wind of this, Fianna would go into hiding and even have a young Zordon and the Phantom Ranger protect her. But unfortunately, Fianna died trying to protect Rita, and Vile raised Rita to be a general and the possible next vessel for Dark Specter. So with Rita being brought back home, Master Vile announces that he's found a new vessel for Dark Specter, and Rita is against this because this has happened several times before, and each time has been a failure. One of those failures being Rita Repulsa. And because of the failures of Rita Repulsa trying to become a vessel for Dark Specter, it's the whole reason why the dude is a bumbling idiot, because the failure of turning him into a vessel fried his brain and left him the way he is. So who exactly is the next vessel for Dark Specter that Master Vile is hyping up? Well, it's none other than Alpha 1, Zordon's original Alpha unit. Now, Alpha 1 being the next vessel for Dark Specter, Rita mocks him, saying that he's an empty husk, and her father's love and approval isn't worth dying for. Now, of course, because Alpha 1 is a machine, he can't be a vessel for Dark Specter, and Rita offers to become Dark Specter's next general, quickly turning on her father and declares herself as Mistress Vile, offering to give Dark Specter a worthy vessel, and that vessel would be Zordon's original body. Flash forward and we see Rita take back the Moon Palace, easily laying waste to Zedd. The Rangers soon arrive, but they are no match for Rita and the vessel, forcing them to retreat. Matthew Cook stays behind to make sure his friends escape safely, but he's captured by the enemy, and Rita begins to soon torture him, breaking him mentally, preying on his insecurities and doubt, turning him into her new Green Ranger. And this is where Rita's plan comes into motion, gathering an army from across the universe consisting of villains we've seen before in the comics, such as Dane, the Death Ranger, and even Draken. Well, kind of Draken. But to bring Dark Specter into this world, she'll need a Morphin Grid Navigator and the Master Arch. And Rita doesn't fuck around when trying to get this plan into motion, threatening to kill anyone who gets in her way or isn't useful to her. We even see her go face to face with Lord Zedd, who was able to morph into his own Ranger form. And here we see Rita confess some feelings during that battle, saying that she cared about Lord Zedd and wanted to please him. Again, this shows Rita's desire to be acknowledged acknowledged, and during the battle, the two appear to be on equal footing, and Lord Zed almost does seem like he's going to deliver the finishing blow, but the attack is soon deflected by the vessel. Rita is able to get a hold of a Morphin grid navigator and takes it to the Bermuda Triangle where one of the Master Archers were being hidden from everyone, taking Grace along with her. The whole reason why Rita brought Grace with her is so that she can witness this event for herself. And Grace, being the badass that she is, gets right into Rita's face and openly mocks her, saying that she's being used and she can smell the daddy issues from her a mile away. This strikes a nerve with Rita and smacks Grace across the face, enough to kill her. Rita is able to summon Dark Specter into this world, and they soon begin conquering the Morphin grid, corrupting Rangers one by one, and having Dark Specter brought into this world is something that Rita would later regret, because when Rita calls the conquest of the Morphin grid their accomplishment, Dark Specter strikes her as punishment, saying that this was all his doing, and the whole reason why Rita is able to do this is because of him. It's his power, and he can easily take it away. Now Squat tries to step forward because he shows concern about Rita, but Rita tells him to stay back and agrees with Dark Specter, saying that he's right. And this scene here is the start of that abusive relationship we see Rita trapped in as she works for Dark Specter. I mean, she doesn't retaliate, she just mindlessly agrees with him because she knows if she steps forward, she knows if she questions him, she's going to get punished. Tommy is captured, and seeing how Tommy is the wielder of the white light, Dark Specter tries corrupting him because he views it as a challenge to corrupt the wielder of the white light. And after hours and hours of torture, it doesn't work. And once again, Dark Specter turns his frustration to Rita, and she can barely get out a response before being insulted by him for her failures. The following issue, we have Rita confronting Tommy, who's locked up in a jail cell, and she offers him a chance to join her again, but Tommy's response is to laugh in her face, saying that there's no point in serving an abuser, and I think you should know that, because abuse is a cycle, and I can see the way he treats you. In that one quote, we have Rita figured out within this story arc, and what Tommy's saying is true. Rita is stuck in what seems to be an abusive relationship with all these people. She moves from villain to villain, wanting to prove herself, wanting to be praised, and wanting to be loved. And later on, we see that same issue. We see her kill the Death Ranger to please Dark Specter. But in the following issue, we see that cycle of abuse continue as Dark Specter is about to kill Rita because of her constant failures. But when she offers him Keeper's staff so Dark Specter can travel across more Ranger universes, she's spared once again because she proves her usefulness to him. The following issue, we have Dark Specter conquering the planet Aquitar, and after he's conquered the planet, he leaves Mistress Vile and Alpha 13 to pick up the pieces and clean everything up. And Alpha 11 says that Dark Specter wouldn't have gotten this far if it wasn't for Rita, but Rita just shakes it off and says that this is Dark Specter's right and privilege to feel this way. And when you see the expression on her face when she says that, you can see that she's masking her emotions, praising Dark Specter, knowing that if she steps out of line, she's going to get in trouble once again. So it's, again, peering into that abusive relationship between the two where she says that everything's fine, but everything's not fine. And Alpha 11 is right here. A lot of this was Rita's doing. She's the one that worked really hard to bring Dark Specter into this world, even though it's essentially dooming the universe. But Rita doesn't want to admit that because she knows that if she steps out of line, like I mentioned earlier, she's gonna get in trouble. And Dark Specter catches wind of their conversation and confronts Rita, but tosses the remains of the Alpha unit in front of her, saying that this is her final warning. And this scene is heartbreaking to see because you see the fear on Rita's face, and although she's bowing down, she's also cowering in fear as she's almost wrapped in a fetal position, about to break down and cry, because Alpha 1 or Alpha 11, whatever you want to call them, they understood Rita. Rita was close to them in a way, and seeing the consequences of Alpha 11 betraying Dark Specter and seeing what could happen to her, Rita realizes her mistake and decides that she's done taking orders. She frees Tommy and says that she will no longer want to serve a master. The two escape and we get this awesome battle on the moon where Dark Specter follows them. Rita says she's done taking orders and wonders how he'll thrive without her help. But Rita of course is no match for Dark Specter and she's almost killed. But Lord Zed swoops in and saves her at the very last minute. Rita is brought back to the Moon Palace, and as Lord Zed berates her, Rita screams that she could have done more, she could have done better. But then Lord Zed weirdly praises her, saying that it's because of her hatred for him, it's what made her choose a different master. And that's what doomed the universe they once swore to conquer. And this is where the comics threw me for a loop reading month to month, because I thought this was setting up their future marriage, but instead Lord Zed just places her back into the dumpster. And this is where we see Rita's final moments in the comics. Although she's given her a chance to escape, she decides to stay behind because she knows that her actions has given Dark Specter the victory in this battle. Whether the Rangers win or lose this battle, she doesn't care. Slowly closing her eyes, she says that she's done with it all. And that's the downfall of Mistress Vile, or the story of Rita Repulsa. I don't know what I'm going to title this video yet, but the journey of Rita Repulsa in the comics and how she became Mistress Vile is fascinating because she starts off as this big menacing villain, and eventually as Darkest Hour goes on, we see her crumble and regret her choice to bring Dark Specter into this world. And it's like I said earlier on in the video, so many characters point out to her that Rita is trying to prove herself to all these villains, wanting to acknowledge herself, become their equal, but in the end, she isn't on the same level as them, and no matter how hard she tries, she'll never be as strong as Lord Zed or Dark Specter. And we don't know if this is the end of Rita Repulsa, because Power Rangers Prime is dropping in November, and we know it's taking place after Darkest Hour, so we could see her again, we honestly don't know. But will she return in Power Rangers Prime reformed, or reverted back to her old ways? We'll have to find out.